Good morning, everyone. Since we spoke last, the President has continued to improve. As with any illness, there are frequent ups and downs over the course, particularly when a patient is being so closely watched 24 hours a day. We review and debate every finding, compare it to existing science and literature, weighing the risks and benefits of every intervention, its timing, as well as any potential impacts a delay may have. Over the course of his illness, the President has experienced 2 episodes of transient drops in his oxygen saturation. We debated the reasons for this and whether we'd even intervene. It was a determination of the team, based predominantly on the timeline from the initial diagnosis, that we initiate dexamethasone. I'd like to take this opportunity now, given some speculation over the course of the illness, the last couple of days, update you on the course of his own illness. Thursday night into Friday morning when I left the bedside, the President was doing well, with only mild symptoms, and his oxygen was in the high 90s. Late Friday morning when I returned to the bedside, the President had a high fever, and his oxygen saturation was transiently dipping below 94%. Given these 2 developments, I was concerned for possible rapid progression of the illness. I recommended the President we try some supplemental oxygen, see how he'd respond. He was fairly adamant that he didn't need it. He was not short of breath. He was tired, had the fever, and that was about it. And after about a minute, on only 2 liters, his saturation levels were back over 95%. Stayed on that for about an hour, maybe, and it was off and gone. Later that day, by the time the team here was at the bedside, the President had been up out of bed, moving about the residence with only mild symptoms. Despite this, everyone agreed the best course of action was to move to Walter Reed for a more thorough evaluation and monitoring. Now I'd like to invite up Dr. Dooley to discuss the current plan.
Thank you, Dr. Conley. Before I begin a brief clinical update on the President's condition, I do want to reiterate my comments from yesterday regarding how proud I am to be a part of this multidisciplinary, multi-institutional team of clinical professionals behind me, and what an honor it is to care for the President here at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Regarding his clinical status, the patient continues to improve. He has remained without fever since Friday morning. His vital signs are stable. From a pulmonary standpoint, he remains on room air this morning and is not complaining of shortness of breath or other significant respiratory symptoms. He is ambulating himself, walking around the White House Medical Unit without limitation or disability. Our continued monitoring of his cardiac, liver, and kidney function demonstrates continued normal findings or improving findings. And I'll now turn it over to Dr. Garibaldi from Johns Hopkins to talk about our therapeutics and, again, our plan for the day.
Thank you, Dr. Dooley, and I just wanted to again reiterate what an honor and a privilege it is to take care of the President, but to be part of such a talented and multidisciplinary team here at Walter Reed. The President yesterday evening completed his 2nd dose of remdesivir. He's tolerated that infusion well. We've been monitoring for any potential side effects, and he has had none that we can tell. His liver and kidney function have remained normal, and we continue to plan to use a 5-day course of remdesivir. In response to transient low oxygen levels, as Dr. Conley has discussed, we did initiate dexamethasone therapy, and he received his 1st dose of that yesterday, and our plan is to continue that for the time being. Today he feels well. He's been up and around. Our plan for today is to have him to eat and drink, be up out of bed as much as possible, to be mobile. And if he continues to look and feel as well as he does today, our hope is that we can plan for a discharge as early as tomorrow to the White House, where he can continue his treatment course. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Conley for any questions.
Just a moment, please. The President wanted me to share how proud he is of the group, what an honor it is for him to be receiving his care here at Walter Reed, surrounded by such incredible talent, academic leaders, department chairs, internationally renowned researchers and clinicians, including the support of Dr. Garibaldi from Johns Hopkins. I'd like to reiterate how pleased we all are with the President's recovery. And with that, I'll take your question.
Thank you so much. Dr. Conley, you said that there were 2 instances where he had drops in oxygen. Can you walk us through the second one? And also, I've got a question for the lung specialist afterwards.
Sure. Yeah. Yesterday, there was another episode where he dropped down about 93%. He doesn't ever feel short of breath. We watched it, and it returned back up. As I said, we evaluate all of these, and given the timeline where he is in the course of illness, we're trying to maximize everything that we could do for him, and we debated whether we'd even start it, the dexamethasone, and we decided that in this case, the potential benefits early on the course probably outweighed any risks at this time.
Did you give him a second round of supplemental oxygen yesterday?
I'd have to check with the nursing staff. I don't think that if he did, it was very, very limited, but he's not on oxygen. And the only oxygen that I ordered or that we provided was that Friday morning initially.
And about what time was that yesterday?
Yesterday, what was yesterday?
You said the second instance?
Incidents? Oh, it was over the course of the day, yeah. Yesterday morning.
Dr. Conley, what is the president's current blood oxygen level? That's my first question to you, Dr. Conley.
98%.
And what do the X-rays and CT scans show? Are there signs of pneumonia? Are there signs of lung involvement? Or any damage to the lungs?
Yeah, so we're tracking all of that. There's some expected findings, but nothing of any major clinical concern.
Sorry. I wanted to ask if his oxygen level ever dipped below 90?
We don't have any recordings here of that. That's right.
What about at the White House? Yeah, what about here? What about at the White House or here? Anything below 90, just to follow up on her question?
No, it was below 94%. It wasn't down into the low 80s or anything. No.
So, okay. So on the dexamethasone, the steroids, sir.
Yesterday, you told us that the president was in great shape, had been in good shape and fever-free for the previous 24 hours. Minutes after your press conference, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told reporters that the president's vitals were very concerning over the past 24 hours. Simple question for the American people. Whose statements about the president's health should we believe?
So the chief and I work side by side, and I think his statement was misconstrued. What he meant was that 24 hours ago, when he and I were checking on the president, that there was that momentary episode of the high fever and that temporary drop in the saturation, which prompted us to act expediently to move him up here. Fortunately, that was really a very transient, limited episode. A couple hours later, he was back up, mild again. I'm not going to speculate what that limited episode was about so early in the course, but he's doing well.
What are the expected findings on his lungs, and why is the president not wearing a mask in the videos and photos that have been released?
Well, the president wears a mask anytime he's around us, and we're all wearing our N95s, full PPE. He's the patient, and when we can, when he'll move out into to public, we move him out and around other people that aren't in full PPE. I assure you, he'll as long as he's still under my care, we'll talk about him wearing a mask.
In a negative pressure room. And the room is negative pressure.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of his care.
Dr. Conley, what time was
we still haven't clarified, Dr. Conley.
I'm sorry?
The lung function question. Can you talk about that and what you expect?
I would just share that, like every patient, we perform lung spirometry on him, and he's maxing it out. We told him, see what you can do, and it's over 2,500 milliliters each time. He's doing great. Yeah.
Are your scans showing any irregularities in his lungs? Are there any obesities? Are there anything?
To disclose that the president had been administered oxygen.
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I was trying to reflect the upbeat attitude that the team, the president, that his course of illness has had. I didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't necessarily true. So here I have it. He is the fact of the matter is that he's doing really well. That he is responding, and as the team said, if everything continues to go well, we're going to start discharge planning back to the White House. That's it. Thank you, folks.
What time on Thursday did the president receive his first coronavirus rapid test?
Can you please explain what you found on his lung scans?
Might be on track to being released from the hospital tomorrow. I want to bring in Dr. Jen Ashton for more on this. Jen, let's start out with these blood oxygen levels going down to a point twice where the doctors wanted to administer dexamethasone, which is a steroid. Tell us about that.
Yeah, let's back up first, George, though, about the oxygen that the president was given while still at the White House. I want to underscore 2 liters nasal cannula oxygen. We are taught in residency in medical school. Most of that is, in fact, going into the room. So that is a really insignificant amount of supplemental oxygen. The other interesting thing for some medical context here with COVID-19 is it has been reported from the beginning of this pandemic that patients who desaturate their blood oxygen levels with COVID-19, they tolerate it strangely very well, much better than patients who, in fact, are desaturating from other types of pneumonia. So now when you go into the treatment, George, the patients being given dexamethasone, there has been really good data out of the UK. This is the only drug that's shown a survival benefit in critically ill patients with COVID-19. Now, steroids given in that trial were given to patients who were on mechanical ventilation. So again, a demonstration, aggressive medical management by his team.
Did you hear everything you needed to hear from the president's team in this press conference?
Well, George, there's always a lot of information. If I were in the room with his medical team, I would want to know some more specific blood tests. I would want to know something called a D-dimer, various inflammatory markers. We heard that there were some imaging tests suggestive of lung involvement. Not a surprise. That's the first organ system that can be involved with COVID-19. Now they're doing ultrasounds to evaluate the lungs for pneumonia, not just chest CAT scans and chest x-rays. So would want to know a little bit more about the imaging tests and the blood tests that are being done on a regular basis.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that with you. The doctor said that the president did well in the lung spirometry. I guess that's when you blow into the tube. But when he was talking about the CAT scan of the lungs, he said the findings were expected, but didn't go into any great detail. What are expected findings?
Yeah, so the imaging findings on CAT scan or chest x-ray or even lung ultrasound in patients with COVID-19 show kind of peripheral involvement in the lung field. So that's far away in the borders of the lungs. We see something called ground glass opacities. You know, these are just the things that the radiologist would be looking for, and they can be mild, they could be severe. None of this is unexpected in someone of his age with this respiratory virus.
And was it expected, did you expect to hear that the president could be released as soon as tomorrow?
I'm not surprised by that, George. You know, you and I have talked about the capacity inside the White House to provide pretty high-level medical care, treatment, management. Dexamethasone, the medications that the president is on right now, can easily be given in the White House. Some of them are given for 5, 6, or even 10 days. Blood tests can be run at the White House. You know, extensive management, obviously, from a clinical standpoint, can be carried out in the White House environment. So that'll be a game-time decision made by his medical team.
Okay, let me bring in John Carl on the phone as well. It was pretty clear, John, that the commander was at pains to try to reconcile what he was saying today with the statements yesterday and the statements he made yesterday, which conflicted with the statements from the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows.
It was night and day, George. He actually came out with actual data. There was less spinning. He wanted to, come out and show that he was, I think, very deliberately making up for what happened yesterday. And let me remind you, George, Dr. Conley yesterday refused several times to answer the question about whether or not the president had been on oxygen. But at one point he said, and this is a direct quote, yesterday and today he was not on oxygen. Right. Now we just learned again from Dr. Conley that in fact the president was on oxygen on Friday. Now that's just a basic fact, and he came out and he told us what seemed like a very serious and factual briefing. But it's such a problem when you have not just the political team at the White House, but the medical team at the White House come out and give a briefing with information that turns out to be flatly wrong. Hopefully this time he's given us information that is correct.
Yeah, he did. He was definitely trying to be more specific today, tried to answer the questions, although he did still say, he's trying to be as upbeat as he possibly can. On one level, you can understand that. On the other level, is that really the job of the president's physician when he's presenting the information publicly?
Yeah, I mean, at least even in doing that, he told us about the two very worrying episodes the president had, both on Friday and yesterday. But I think that from now on, throughout this process, there will always be a nagging question of, are they trying to spin the situation to be upbeat, to give the best possible description of what's happening, or are they giving us the cold hard facts? Today it seemed to be they were doing a little bit of each.
Right.
But we got the facts, and that's the important thing. You get the facts. He can say things are looking great, the president's, but we have the cold hard facts of what's happening.
Yeah, it was definitely clear he was trying to convey that today. I want to go to Rachel Scott outside Walter Reed as well. A bit of a crowd gathering there, Rachel?
Yeah, that's right, George. Lots of the president's supporters gathering at the gates of the Walter Reed Medical Center just right behind me. We've heard chants of USA, USA this morning. They're cheering, honking horns here, obviously wanting to wish the president well, want to see him back at the White House soon, and we're learning today that could be as early as tomorrow. But there is this growing list of White House officials and advisors that have now tested positive for the virus, including that cluster in the Rose Garden for the president's ceremony of his Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. We know the latest, just Nick Luna, the president's personal assistant and body man who travels with the president, tested positive. Now 8 people that attended that Rose Garden ceremony have tested positive for the virus, including former Governor Chris Christie, who obviously works here at ABC News as a contributor. He tested positive, is now in the hospital, and I'm struck by something that Chris Christie told you and Cecilia Vega on GMA. He was inside of the room when the president was preparing for that debate. 5 of the 9 people inside that room have now tested positive for the virus, George, and he told both of you that no one was wearing a mask.
Right. I mean, and we had Jason Miller, the president's senior campaign advisor, on the program this morning saying that the president was encouraging people to wear masks in that phone call he had with Jason that Jason reported on earlier today on This Week. What other activity are we expecting from the president today? It seemed like he had a pretty steady stream of phone calls yesterday, and we saw that video that he released last night.
He did, George, and he also spoke with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell yesterday, who again reiterated that the president was in good spirits. Look, the White House has made clear that the president is still working, that the president is still in charge. Yesterday, they released photos of the president behind the desk. Obviously, the president wanting to address the American people himself after that press conference with his medical team, telling the American people that he is on the road to recovery, though he did say that he's not out of the woods just yet. The president said the real test will be over the next few days, but obviously he could be back at the White House as early as tomorrow, George.
The headline, thank you, Rachel. The headline from the president's doctors that they say he continues to improve, is being treated now with steroids and remdesivir, and they're hoping, they say, that he can be released from the hospital as early as tomorrow. We're going to return to our regular programming. Have a